Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tangmen based on novel. So let's start. The purest dragon bloodline wasn't passed down. Along with the fact that dragons found it very difficult to breed, they weren't able to maintain sufficient numbers and slowly lost their position in history. Even so, some of the remaining dragon bloodlines were still very strong. The Golden Eyes Black Dragon King Di Qian was a very good example. He wasn't the Golden Dragon King, or the Silver Dragon King, which were both avatars of the Dragon God, and he wasn't one of the Dragon God's 9 sons, either. However, he was still able to become the #1 savage beast. It showed how powerful dragons were in the ancient era. Right now, Elder Xian had transformed into a creature with a goat's body, a human face, and a tiger's teeth and claws. He had taken the form of the Dragon God's 5th son, the Taotie. It wasn't going to be easy dealing with the Golden Eyes Black Dragon King, given that he had cultivation level greater than 800,000 years. Elder Mu couldn't do it in the past, and it was even more impossible now. Before Elder Mu had passed away, however, he had confirmed Elder Xian as his successor. In fact, there was once a debate in the Sea God's Pavilion regarding this matter. Yes, Elder Xian was the strongest after Elder Mu. However, he was an alcoholic and was slovenly. In terms of managing the academy, he couldn't compare to Elder Song. As a result, many elders had once suggested that Elder Song should succeed the position as the master of the Sea God's Pavilion and take control of the academy. However, Elder Mu used one reason to overrule everyone's opinion and confirmed Elder Xian as the master of the Sea God's Pavilion. This reason was the bloodline of Elder Xian's martial soul. 100 years ago, Elder Mu had lost to the Golden Eyes Black Dragon King, Di Qian. After that loss, he had thought it over carefully. Given that Di Qian's abilities were even above an ultimate Doluo, which placed him half a step into the realm of gods, what was the best way to curb him? His bloodline had already brought him to the peak of the food chain in the Doluo continent. It was almost impossible to surpass him in terms of bloodline. Di Qian's abilities were of ultimate darkness. Even Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice couldn't curb him. 100 years ago, Elder Mu hadn't expected to have a disciple in the future who possessed ultimate ice. Even if he knew, he wouldn't have been too hopeful. That was because Huo Yuhao had to cultivate until he became an ultimate Doluo. Otherwise, there was no way that he could fight Di Qian. From then on, Elder Mu had used all his efforts to nurture Elder Xian. There was only one way to curb Di Qian: start from his bloodline. No matter how strong Di Qian's bloodline was, he was still a dragon. Among all dragons, those with bloodlines that were superior to him were the Gold and Silver Dragon Kings, as well as the Dragon God's 9 sons. Elder Xian's godly Taotie bull contained part of the bloodline of the Dragon God's 5th son, the Taotie. It was just that this bloodline wasn't complete. Although it was very strong, it was still inferior to Di Qian's bloodline. Elder Mu and Elder Xian weren't able to unleash a fusion skill. However, things became different as Elder Mu's life approached its end, and he was left with only the power of his spirit, and part of his soul power. Elder Mu could enter Elder Xian's body using his immense spiritual and soul power, as an ultimate Doluo, and forcefully suppress the bull part of his martial soul. He now used all his strength to unleash the full potential of Elder Xian's Taotie bloodline, which led to the current scene. To a certain extent, Elder Xian was like a Taotie that had descended right now. Even with Di Qian's abilities, he was shocked when he saw the change that Elder Xian went through. He had lived in this world for several 100,000 years. Although part of his 800,000-year cultivation was achieved through various methods, it wasn't far-fetched to say that he was the oldest soul beast on the continent. He had personally seen the Dragon God's 9 sons before, and naturally could recognize the look of the Taotie. He was stunned, and recalled how the dragons had ruled the entire Doluo continent several 100,000 years ago. "Uncle Taotie, is it really you?" Di Qian trembled slightly, and he became agitated. When he saw this powerful figure from the past, he couldn't control his emotions even with his cultivation. However, he soon got over his initial shock. "No, you're not Uncle Taotie. Scoundrels, how dare the two of you commit such blasphemy?" Di Qian roared furiously, and his scales started to stand on end. Purple light filled his golden eyes, and the dark, gloomy clouds turned purple at this instant. The entire sky seemed to be on the verge of collapse, and the entire world seemed like it was going to be destroyed under his rage. This was Di Qian's true ability, a terrifying strength capable of destroying heaven and earth. However, a streak of golden light, at the east side of Shrek City rose straight into the sky and struck Elder Xian's body. Golden light shone behind him and refracted outward, forming a gentle golden barrier that engulfed the entire academy. No matter how much Di Qian raged, he couldn't reach a single inch past a 500-meter region in the sky above Shrek City. Even the Soul Beast army that was charging towards Shrek Academy was deflected away by a gentle screen, and were unable to take even half a step forward through it. This was strength that came from the Golden Tree. Under Elder Mu's guidance, the soul of the Golden Tree was unleashed. Some of the previous masters of the Sea God's Pavilion had chosen to fuse with the Golden Tree. Under the nourishment of their power, the Golden Tree protected the Sea God's Pavilion, Shrek Academy, and even Shrek City. Its power had accumulated for tens of thousands of years. Even though it could only be drawn upon within Shrek City, the Golden Tree was Shrek's final protector, and its existence was something even Di Qian's strength couldn't shake. If Di Qian was 1 foot into the realm of gods, then the Golden Tree was already half a god, given the immense soul power and energy that it contained. It was just that it didn't have any consciousness. Furthermore, it recovered at a much slower pace than humans and soul beasts after it was drained. When the first beast wave arrived, the Golden Tree wasn't utilized because the body sect was there to reinforce Shrek Academy. However, Elder Mu couldn't be bothered with things like secrecy right now, given the situation they were in. Shrek City would be obliterated if Di Qian launched a direct attack against it. The strength of the Golden Tree didn't just protect Shrek. At the same time, it also further unleashed the potential of Elder Xian's Taotie bloodline. Elder Xian and Elder Mu's powers were finally fused into the last stage, as the power of the Golden Tree poured into the Taotie's body. Instantly, the Taotie's body started to shine brightly with golden light. Di Qian's powers caused the sky to collapse, while the golden light helped to mend the sky. Even under the terrifying suppression of that purplish-black light, this golden light remained very resilient, and continued to spread outward. The Taotie's body also slowly grew bigger. Di Qian seemed to sense something, and roared furiously. He shook his body forcefully, and his huge wings opened up. The light from the scales on his body dimmed slightly before expanding. Suddenly, the sky was temporarily frozen. The parts of the sky that were about to collapse earlier started to show fissures. From these fissures, dragon heads started to poke out. Every dragon head looked identical to Di Qian. They opened their mouths, and terrifying purplish-black dragon flames spewed towards the Taotie. This was an ultimate technique that Di Qian specialized in, myriad dragon flames. This attack was strong enough to annihilate an entire city. However, Elder Mu had already started preparing to deal with Di Qian's abilities 100 years ago. How could Di Qian succeed so easily? The Taotie had already grown larger than Di Qian. He slowly lifted his head and opened his mouth before unleashing a furious, earth-shaking roar. As one of the dragon's god 9 sons, the Taotie's bloodline was naturally closer to the dragon god than Di Qian. His mighty roar didn't just stop all the dragon heads that were spewing dragon flames. At the same time, all the soul beasts with dragon bloodlines were crawling on the ground, shuddering, and didn't dare disobey him. A ball of intense golden light was released from the Taotie's mouth, but it wasn't unleashed towards Di Qian. It rapidly grew in the air and transformed into a huge head that was more than 1,000 meters in diameter. It was a head identical to the Taotie's own. As it opened its golden mouth, it sucked in Di Qian's myriad dragon flames. All the dragon flames were sucked into its mouth. The terrifying force even seemed to suck the dragon heads out of the cracks in the sky. Di Qian was shocked, and quickly beat his wings, turning around and sweeping his tail out. It was whipped towards the side of that golden projection with a terrifying aura. However, he still underestimated the strength of the Taotie jointly formed by Elder Xian, Elder Mi, and the Golden Tree. The Taotie was currently around as strong as Di Qian, but his bloodline was purer. Elder Mu had tapped into the pure strength in the Golden Tree, along with his own soul power, to unleash the strength of the Taotie. This Taotie was close to being half a god, and it might even be stronger than the real Taotie was back then. The Taotie was adept at devouring things. He loved delicacies, which was the reason why his abilities were linked to devouring things. No one's digestive abilities could compare to him. After Di Qian's myriad dragon flames were devoured, they were quickly transformed into purplish-black whirlpools, and clearly vanished within the golden light. When Di Qian's tail whipped over, the Taotie twisted his head to one side and opened his jaws wide before biting onto it. Such a powerful whip was forcefully stopped, just like that. Furthermore, more than a third of Di Qian's body, starting from his tail, was swallowed by the Taotie. Di Qian was extremely furious, and he started to struggle with all his might, roaring madly as he tried to break free from the Taotie's mouth. However, the Taotie's strength was beyond his expectations. No matter how hard he tried, he wasn't able to break free. The Taotie's body started to shine with bright gold light, and fused with the Taotie's golden head. As this golden light continued to expand, it slowly devoured Di Qian's body. Di Qian was infuriated as he shouted, "Do you think you can avoid this calamity by using this enhanced strength to trap me? Dream on. Even if you can trap me for an hour, it won't be able to last for long. I really want to see what strength all of you have to protect Shrek. Those from the Great Star Do Forest attack. Attack and destroy this city in front of me. Kill." As Di Qian shouted out one last time, his huge body was devoured by the Taotie. Golden light flashed, and the sky turned into a patch of gold. However, the golden light that came from the golden tree seemed to have been used up, and vanished from the air. The patch of gold that had protected Shrek City also disappeared. That majestic fight had indeed astonished all, both humans and soul beasts. This was indeed a duel between the best on the continent. The strength that both parties summoned had completely exceeded that of a peak-titled Doluo. Shrek Academy had eventually managed to seal Di Qian with the power that they had accumulated over thousands of years. However, Elder Xian and Elder Mu's abilities were also sealed right now. As for how long they could seal Di Qian, it wasn't easy to tell. Even so, Shrek's revelation of its high-end strength, which wasn't inferior to that of the Great Star Do Forest, had a great effect in boosting the morale of Shrek City. Di Qian's last roar was his final order to the beast wave from the Great Star Do Forest. The barrier erected by the golden tree had disappeared. Instantly, countless beasts rushed towards the city. "Fire the Zhuge divine crossbow cannons." Shishing roared furiously into the air. In the distance, Elder Song started to pester Bai Ji again using her speed. Figure after figure also started to charge towards the sky on one side of the forest to protect her. The high-end combat strengths of both parties started to clash. The Zhuge divine crossbow cannons were fired again, and hundreds of high-explosive bombs were fired rapidly into the air. Shishing's commands were very precise. The cannons weren't fired towards the soul beasts that were charging in front, but they were aimed slightly further back. In this way, the soul beasts would be separated. Furthermore, these cannons were fired with full force this time. They fired 3 consecutive volleys, and more than 1,600 high-explosive bombs were fired towards the soul beasts. They were divided into 3 different waves. The timing between each wave was less than 5 seconds. After the previous lesson, these soul beasts were no longer so passive. Those whose cultivations were greater than 10,000 years instantly unleashed their innate soul skills towards the bombs that were approaching them when they saw the high explosives coming. Many bombs exploded in the air and didn't strike any of them. However, Shishing's attack was indeed quite vicious. As the cannons were fired in 3 different waves, the intensity of the attack was 3 times stronger than earlier. As the Soul Beast army was unprepared, they still suffered a lot. Close to 2/3 of the high explosive bombs still struck the Soul Beasts. As tremendous explosions occurred, Shrek City seemed to be shaken as buzzes and groans echoed back and forth. The terrifying explosions caused the earth to shake, and the blood and flesh of Soul Beasts splattered all around. When she saw this scene, Bai Ji's face turned cold. She couldn't be bothered with Elder Song's pestering, and unleashed her mass healing ability. A huge patch of azure light quickly engulfed the center of the region where the explosions had occurred. However, Elder Song was extremely strong. Without Di Qian's threat in the sky, she slashed open another wound on Bai Ji's right arm, a streak of green light flashing by just when Bai Ji was using her mass healing ability. The 400,000-year soul beasts protecting Bai Ji roared out furiously at the same time, and an intense concentration of attacks was instantly directed at Elder Song. However, Elder Song's speed was simply too scary. As the fastest soul master in Shrek, she unleashed her full strength through her green shadow godly hawk. A streak of green light could be seen flashing through the air, but the powerful soul beasts weren't able to see her clearly. They were helpless as she continued to pester them. Elder Song used her actions to teach a lesson to all the Soul Masters from Shrek Academy. She was teaching them how an agility-type Soul Master should fight. In terms of abilities, Elder Song couldn't compare to so many strong Soul Beasts working together. However, She managed to perfectly tap into her ungodly speed to terrorize her enemies. She didn't have the intention to harm them overmuch, but only aimed to pester them. Her offensive strength would be lethal if one ignored her. However, their attacks would also be completely useless against her if they tried to make a move against her. They could only remain cautious around her. Instantly, all these powerful soul beasts were rendered completely helpless. Bai Ji's treatment was precise and just in time. She managed to save many of the soul beasts' lives. However, there were simply too many explosive bombs, and countless soul beasts still lost their lives. Even the ground was left with huge depressions that obstructed the soul beasts behind them. In terms of intelligence, soul beasts couldn't compare to humans. Those soul beasts, who were leading the charge in front, continued to charge towards Shrek City due to their excessive bravery. They didn't even bother with the fact that their reinforcements behind had been obstructed. These ferocious soul beasts arrived at the city wall and immediately started to scale them through various means. At the top of the city walls were powerful soul masters from Shrek in formations, waiting for these soul beasts to come. Of the 3,000 soul masters, 1,000 moved forward in unison, and every one of them lifted a soul ray spear to their shoulders. Countless soul rays started to rain down the sides of the city walls, as they were fired towards the soul beasts scaling the walls. The soul beasts that were charging in front were the weakest. There were very few among them that were adept at long-range attacks. Even if there were any that specialized in long-range attacks, they could still be easily overcome, given the sheer number of powerful soul masters at the top of the city walls. However, these soul beasts still used their bodies to resist the soul rays. The first wave was instantly suppressed by the countless soul rays. As the soul beasts screamed in pain, they fell off the city walls. They were only able to leave behind scratch marks on the walls, even with their sharp claws. The Zhuge divine crossbow cannons also took this opportunity to cool down. When the soul beasts in the second ranks charged over later, those soul beasts that were originally in front had mostly been killed. As for Shrek City, it was completely undamaged. Some of those who had just joined the Shrek City Defense Army were inevitably nervous earlier, when they saw the size of the beast wave coming towards Shrek City. However, their confidence started to grow as time passed and the Soul Beast Army suffered heavy casualties, while they remained completely unhurt. At this point, the Tang sect arrived at the top of the city walls. Bei Bei was leading them, and they met up with Din Yang Xiaozhe. Reporting to Din Yang, Bei Bei brought everyone from the Tang sect over in front of Yang Xiaozhe, and greeted him respectfully. Yang Xiaozhe said in a low-pitched voice, "It's great that all of you are here. All of you can prepare here to serve as our backup. Remember, don't get too far away from me. This time, your Zhuge divine crossbow cannons have helped us greatly. Take a look." Yang Xiaozhe looked very excited right now. He wasn't excited because they had killed a large number of soul beasts. He was excited because of Elder Mu's appearance. Elder Mu wasn't dead, and his spirit was going to live forever. To him, he felt as if he had returned to his younger days, when he had listened to Elder Mu's lectures. When Elder Mu and Elder Xian collaborated to seal Di Qian in the sky, Shrek Academy's confidence was greatly boosted. Against this terrifying beast wave, Shrek City had completely gained the upper hand. Bei Bei laughed bitterly. "Din Yang, we are actually here to ask for forgiveness." Yang Xiaozhe was momentarily stunned, and then immediately realized something. He raised his right hand, and a streak of soul power started to expand. Both him and Bei Bei were engulfed by this streak of soul power, and all outside noise was isolated. What? What happened?" Yang Xiaozhe asked. Bei Bei laughed bitterly. "On our way here, we met Nan Qiuqiu, who was rushing back from the Sun Moon Empire. She's the young sect leader of the Earth Dragon sect that we brought back from Radiant City. This time, she returned with her mother, Elder Nan Shui. Nan Qiuqiu, Nan Shui. Yang Xiaozhe was stunned for a moment, but he soon reacted. "Are you saying that Yuhao returned to Sunrise City to save the two of them? Since they are back, where's Yuhao? What's happened to him? Is he fine?" Huo Yuhao was simply too important to Shrek Academy. He was the heir to the Sea God's Pavilion. He was supposed to succeed Yang Xiaozhe in the future. Furthermore, Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice martial soul and the spirits that he had researched were very important to the future of the academy. Right now, Bei Bei didn't know whether he was supposed to be excited or depressed. On their way here earlier, they had stumbled upon Nan Shui and Nan Qiuqiu, who were both returning to Shrek City. As they returned, Nan Qiuqiu recounted everything that had happened between them and Huo Yuhao to Bei Bei. After hearing them, Bei Bei was stunned for half a minute before he quickly led his comrades toward the southern city wall. A beast wave had come from the Great Star Do Forest, and Huo Yuhao was the one who had started this mess. After listening to Bei Bei's retelling of the events, Yang Xiaozhe's reaction was identical to Bei Bei's reaction previously. He just stood there in a daze. Wang Qiu'er was actually the human form of the Emperor Beast. This is too unbelievable. Even titled Doluo like us didn't notice anything different between her and a human. No wonder she was the Emperor Beast. What about Yuhao? When is he returning? Yang Xiaozhe quickly questioned Bei Bei. Bei Bei shook his head and said, I don't know, either. I heard Elder Nan Shueishui mention that Huo Yuhao had some important matters to attend to. He will return after he settles them. He should be able to guess that the soul beasts from the Great Star Do Forest are going to retaliate. Considering his intelligence, I'm sure he'll rush back as soon as possible, even though he's affected by Qiu'er's death. I believe that he has some kind of way to help us deal with this beast wave. Dean Yang, the Tang sect can't shirk responsibility for this matter. We are willing to use whatever strength we have to help the Academy resist this beast wave. I just hope that you can put in a few good words for us to Elder Xian. This wasn't what Huo Yuhao wished for. He has also been greatly affected, and he was also the passive one, too. Yang Xiaozhe suddenly raised his hand to interrupt Bei Bei, stopping him from continuing further. What's the point of saying all that now? Let's force this beast wave back first. Furthermore, did I say that I'm blaming Yuhao? This can only be considered an opportunity for him. Why would we blame him for something like this? He's already very blessed, and has now obtained the strength of the God Beast of Destiny. He's bound to grow even faster. We still can't tell whether this is a good thing or a bad thing for the Academy. Let's wait until he's back. In addition, do you really think Di Qian would remain quiet, even without this thing as a trigger? The abilities of the soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest have been increasing significantly over these past few centuries. The number of 100,000-year soul beasts has been increasing, and their overall abilities have reached a new high. The Golden Eyes Black Dragon King is a rogue. In fact, the Academy had already guessed that he wouldn't choose to remain quiet for long. The death of the Emperor Beast has only accelerated this process. The death of the Emperor Beast has also greatly restricted any future enhancements to the Great Star Do Forest. This is not a bad thing for humans. Right now, let's see how we deal with this crisis. Bei Bei was much more relieved after listening to Yang Xiaozhe's words. Dean Yang's attitude basically represented that of the Academy. As long as they didn't blame Huo Yuhao for bringing about this calamity, Bei Bei was satisfied. Bei Bei straightened his gaze and asked, Dean Yang, what do you need us to do now? Yang Xiaozhe replied, I don't need all of you to fight yet. Didn't you say that you wanted to gather the Tang sect's strength to help the Academy? In that case, I'll need you and your sect to bring out all the soul tools you have. The Tang sect will be in charge of the deployment of its soul tools. Coordinate with Shixing regarding this. Yes. Bei Bei quickly agreed, and immediately turned around before gesturing to his comrades. Xu Sanxia and the others had also heard what had happened to Huo Yuhao. They were also very worried about the Academy's opinion. Right now, they felt more relieved after seeing Bei Bei's expression. From Bei Bei's face, it seemed like the Academy didn't have any opinion on Huo Yuhao just yet. Let's go and gather all the soul tools in the sect. Take out all our sealed milk bottles and the various soul tools that we've just invented, Bei Bei instructed them. Huo Yuhao was important to Shrek Academy, but he was also equally important to the Tang sect. He was everyone's little junior, and had contributed greatly to the development of the sect. At this critical moment, Bei Bei only wanted to do one thing as the eldest senior of the Tang sect: contribute as much as he and the Tang sect could to stop this beast wave, and make amends for Huo Yuhao's mistake. The battle had well and truly begun. The Soul Beast army didn't stop their attack even though they had suffered heavy casualties. On the contrary, their attacks became even more ferocious. Shixing was holding the fort at the center of the southern city wall, issuing orders continuously. After firing the Zhuge divine crossbow cannons again, he had no choice but to let the cannons cool down for some time. Huge numbers of soul beasts started to scale the city walls again, and the long-range attacks that came from the soul beasts had also become stronger. Shixing immediately changed their fighting strategy in response to all this. Activate our protective soul barriers and release the shock bombs. The soul masters, who were the furthest back, were each carrying a metal pole in front of them. They quickly pressed their palms against their poles and poured in their soul power. Suddenly, a green barrier quickly rose over Shrek City, forming a strong isolation barrier. The soul beasts that were about to reach the top of the city walls suddenly realized that they weren't able to grab hold of anything with their sharp claws, and immediately slid back down the walls. The long-range attacks that hit the barrier were immediately dispelled. A hole suddenly opened at an inconspicuous spot on the south city wall. Balls of silver light instantly spread out from it. Intense shockwaves started to surge outwards, and all the soul beasts that were climbing the city walls were engulfed in a net formed by these balls of silver light. Their bodies started to shine with silver light as they fell off the city walls. Falling off the city wall wasn't fatal for these soul beasts, considering how tough their bodies were. The shockwaves only temporarily stopped them, too. However, they crashed into the soul beasts underneath them as they fell off the city walls. The pulse that came from the shock bombs could be passed on. Suddenly, a huge number of soul beasts beneath the city started to gather together, and they were all affected by the shock bombs, causing them to temporarily lose their offensive abilities. Throw! Shishing shouted with an emotionless look on his face. Balls of fire were then rapidly thrown into the air by ordinary soldiers. These fireballs weren't ordinary, though. They were mixed with some medicine using special formulas to increase their combustion effect and viscosity. Incendiary bombs. They were specially invented by Shrek Academy, and were only used for defending the city. Most importantly, they just needed to be ignited before use, and would explode the moment they contacted something else. After exploding, they would turn certain regions into seas of fire, and these fires would continue to burn for a long time. Most soul beasts were afraid of fire. Even though these flames weren't enough to kill them, their instinctive fear would still cause them to panic. These incendiary bombs could also be used by ordinary soldiers. In an instant, countless incendiary bombs were thrown down from the city wall, creating a huge sea of fire. The soul beasts that were gathered beneath the city wall started to roar wildly. They struggled in this sea of fire, and didn't even care when they hurt other soul beasts. The rest of the soul beasts charging from behind couldn't help but be deterred by the extremely high temperature. While Shrek City wasn't as large as Radiant City, and didn't have a soul engineering legion, they had the most outstanding soul masters in the entire continent, and possessed an army with the greatest fighting strength. When the incendiary bombs landed, Elder Song's attacking intensity increased. While she was encircled by several 100,000-year soul beasts, she still managed to pester by G enough that she was unable to use her area of effect healing type soul skill. These soul beasts' long-range attacks weren't weak, but it was a pity that there were too many types of soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest, and they hardly lived together as a species. Under such circumstances, they weren't able to coordinate with one another. Even the long-range attacks by the 100,000-year soul beasts weren't able to cause too much damage to the protective soul barrier on the city wall, as they didn't coordinate and strike at the same time. Shrek Academy was still waiting, while adopting a strict formation. Their current advantage didn't mean anything. The beast wave that was coming still seemed to be endless. Furthermore, the truly strong soul beasts from the Great Star Doe Forest had yet to enter the fight. The soul beasts continued to charge maniacally towards the city, while the Shrek City Defense Army continued to defend the city resolutely. The fight had entered a stalemate. The soul beasts were using their lives to drain Shrek City's resources. The Zhuge Divine crossbow cannons had limited lifespans. Even with sufficient time to cool down, their internal formation arrays would still be damaged after they were fired a set number of times. Stationary soul cannon shells had yet to be utilized. They were Shrek's trump card. Those from the Tang sect were the busiest right now. They received the help of a 500-man team assigned to them by Shishing. A huge amount of resources were being transported from the Tang sect to the southern city wall right now. After the fight had gone on for an hour, Shishing saw a pile of stationary soul cannon shells behind him, and finally smiled for the first time since the fight had started. The Tang sect has a strong foundation, and they are willing to offer everything for us to use. I heard that they only grew to this scale because of the Academy's support. The Academy definitely made a worthwhile investment. The soul beasts had attacked for some time, but they weren't able to reach the top of the city wall, as they were suppressed by soul tools. The beast wave continued to surge strongly, but Shrek remained resolute. No matter how ferocious these soul beasts were, they still managed to resist them. However, Elder Song seemed as if she was unable to hold on anymore. No one from Shrek went to reinforce Elder Song, including the martial god Doluo Xianlina, who was Elder Song's biological daughter. It was because no one could match her speed. With Elder Song's cultivation, she could leave the battlefield anytime she wanted to. However, she couldn't last forever. Once a person was locked on by too many soul beasts, they would find it very difficult to escape. Green light flashed, and that dazzling green ray appeared in the sky again. Elder Song had returned to the top of the city walls and revealed her form. She looked as if she was fine. However, on closer observation, it was evident that she was slightly out of breath. The moment Elder Song left the battlefield, Bai Ji's mass healing immediately took effect. A huge patch of azure light engulfed the front portion of the beast wave, and greatly reduced the losses that the Soul Beast army incurred. The soul rays from the top of the city walls were still firing strongly, and temporarily suppressed the beast wave. The shock bombs weren't used very often, only when the soul beasts were near the top of the city walls. Elder Song was also shocked when she saw the huge number of stationary soul cannons that were massed at the top of the city walls, and asked Shishing, "Did the academy prepare all these?" Shishing laughed softly and shook his head. He said, "No, they were sent here by the Tang sect." This video will end here.